What's that? Huh. Radio. What's going on with that radio?
I was born a year after the release of Return of the Jedi, so as far as I'm concerned, the entire original Star Wars trilogy has always been there. I have no concept of what it was like to see the original film in 1977, when my parents assure me it was like nothing else you could see at the movies, or of waiting 3 years between each film. I first saw all three over a couple days on video when I was just barely old enough to understand the story. So, yes, I did actually get to see the films as they were originally released, which sadly isn't possible for younger generations with the way George Lucas has developed such a tin ear for the fans and insists on making changes to every new release of the films. Personally, I stopped really caring a while ago. I've got the DVD set, and that's as far as I'm going with it. But for all those people who want some taste of the experience as it first was, you're in luck, because there is one version of the story that you can still experience exactly as it was when first released, the radio adaptation of all three films done by NPR. The first two adaptations were released in 1981 and 1983, while Jedi didn't come around until 1996. It's also noticeably shorter than the first two, so clearly there were some major problems in its production. Heck, the scriptwriter for all three, Brian Daley, died just hours after recording ended. And that's a real shame, as going by these scripts, he was a real talent who may have really been able to make a name for himself with original stories. And it certainly seems that a lot of what we have here is Daley's work. The official credit listing is written by Brian Daley based on characters and situations created by George Lucas, and there's a ton of extra material here. The shows are made up of episodes lasting about 25 minutes each, and they last 13, 10, and 6 episodes respectively, so you do the math. Naturally, the first film gets the most extra material, and it's actually not until episode 4 that we reach the point where the film begins. This allows for plenty of neat extra tidbits on the Star Wars universe, and also more on characterization and even occasionally cleaning up some of the film's writing. Like, did you ever think that this moment was just a bit too contrived? Well, as it turns out...
R2, get back in line. R2, get back in line. You'll never fire. R2, what are you doing to that R5 unit? R2. R2-D2, you know droids are not supposed to modify other droids without human supervision. Honestly, I don't know what's got into you.
Yes, R2 actually sabotaged that other robot to ensure he'd be purchased by Luke. This kind of thing pops up all over and is especially helpful at letting us learn the names of various alien species instead of having to go to Wikipedia to find, say, the name of that thing in the trash compactor. It's also usually pretty natural when it comes to the bane of all radio shows, conveying what's happening entirely by sound. The Star Wars films are very visual experiences, so I had my doubts on how well a radio version would work. But it mostly does okay here, with the exposition of what's happening rarely seeming forced. The scripts especially get a lot of mileage from having C-3PO nervously narrate everything that's happening, as he's the character who would most likely be doing that. Finally, there are a couple scenes where the added dialogue really makes things even more emotionally effective and badass. The first is when Leia kills Jabba.
That's right, Jabba. You forgot one thing. When you put a slave on a leash, the other end is attached to you. Now you know how it feels to have cold iron around your throat, Jabba. Comprehend all you want. Your fine pack of cutleries are too busy saving their own necks. Get away from those
R2 is coming, Your Highness. We must... Oh, gracious. I'll save you, Princess Leia. Leave her alone. Listen, don't alone.
Here's your final payment, Jabba.
And then there's Darth Vader killing Palpatine.
Darth Vader's master!
And I also have to discuss the acting, which unfortunately is much more of a mixed bag. Only 3 actors reprised their roles from the films: Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels, and Billy D. Williams. And only Daniels came back for Jedi. Well, I guess technically R2 and Chewbacca have the same voices too, but those don't really count. The other actors mostly do a good job, but it's still hard to shake the idea that their voices sound wrong saying these lines. It actually would have been better to get a completely new cast so we wouldn't get the jarring feeling of 3 familiar voices interacting with a bunch of new ones. Probably the most important of the new roles is Brock Peters as Darth Vader. I guess they figure that if they couldn't get James Earl Jones, they'd better get another deep-voiced black man, and he offers an interesting contrast to Jones's performance, as he presents a much more emotional personality. Sometimes this works, like the scene where Admiral Piet catches a glimpse of Vader with his helmet off.
Approach me now that my helmet is in place. Were you shocked by what you saw?
Lord Vader, I was behind you. I only saw the back.
I'm aware of what you saw. You know that I'm not to be disturbed when I am in my meditation chamber. It better be an excellent reason for this intrusion.
Other times it just sounds silly, like with Vader's most famous line.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed my father.
No, Luke. I am your father.
Among the other notable names, there's Ed Begley Jr. as Boba Fett. He only gets a few lines, but does a nice job giving pretty much the same performance as Jeremy Bulloch.
Tomorrow I'll collect another bounty, and you'll be dead.
There's also Ed Asner as Jabba, which is easily the most inexplicable choice. He doesn't have any lines in English, and there's a good deal of post-production work on his voice, so what's the point of getting a big actor for the part when they could have gotten away with hiring the studio's janitor? Finally, there's John Lithgow as Yoda. Frank Oz's performance in the films is recognized as pretty much a match for his Grover voice, and in Empire, Lithgow really embarrasses himself, stretching as hard as he can to match it.
Use the Force, young Skywalker. Remember the balance within.
However, for his one scene in Jedi, he lets himself relax a lot more and really makes me wish he could have gotten more material with how much he improved.
Soon I will rest. Yes. Forever sleep. Earned it I have.
If you're a fan of the movies, and really who isn't, you should definitely check these out. They're currently available from Audible, albeit with some annoyingly long intro and outro sequences, and it's a lot of fun to see how different scenes are adapted, plus tons of extra scenes that will add to your understanding of the Star Wars universe. And of course, it's one of the few remaining pieces of the original films before Lucas started tinkering with them, which to some people alone makes it worth the purchase. Definitely a keeper for me.